Bamigboye. Well, gratitude. Let's read her profile.
Okay, so Dr. Grace Ojeamiren Bamigboye is a certified consultant English language pathologist with more than 30 years experience of working with children with special needs and has a special interest in speech language disorders and bilingualism. She has a doctorate degree in speech pathology from the University of Ibadan and has obtained other certificates in related area associated with special needs service delivery. Grace Bamigboye currently runs an outfit which provides speech therapy, and she's also a proprietress of Grace Shaw Inclusive School Anthony. Grace gives lectures and partners with other institutions, and she's also registered with Medical Rehabilitation Therapists Board of Nigeria and is a member of Speech Pathology and Audiology Association of Nigeria. Yes. That is her. You're welcome.
Well, a lot of people will be wondering that speech pathologist, what does it simply mean? So I'm going to throw the question at you so people understand. Yeah. So who is a speech pathologist?
Good. So good afternoon, viewers. Glad to have me here. Thank you, Gratitude, and thank you, Blossom, for having me. It's always a joy to be amongst beautiful women. Yeah. Thank you. So speech pathology, it's an arm of the paramedical profession, interested in or focused on identification of speech language disorder and planning activities that can manage those speech and language disorders. So it's actually an arm in the medical profession, but I would say paramedical profession, because speech pathology, you can practice in schools and you can practice within the clinical setting, depending on your area of specialization. Before, there's really no specialization, but these days, now you have specializations. You have people that are speech pathology for just individuals with hearing impairment. You have speech pathologies for swallow issues that we call dysphagia. You have speech pathology for cerebral palsy and other different developmental conditions. So basically, speech pathology is an area, a branch of medicine. Let's leave it at that for easy understanding.
Yes, I was going to say that. We don't tend to cloud them with a lot of words.
So it's usually, for here in Nigeria, we are controlled by the Board of Medical Rehabilitation Therapists Board of Nigeria, where you have the occupational therapists, the physiotherapists, and the orthotics. And that's the board that oversees the professionals in that area. So basically, that's what speech pathology is all about. Yeah.
Amazing. Great. Well, I know a lot of people, since she's explained that, I want you to know that there is a special topic for today. So it's not just about her telling us exactly what it means. And today's topic is on bilingualism and speech disorder. That is understanding the role of American Sign Language in inclusive education. Well, I know last time she came, where you were on board then, she gave us some sign language. Well, I'm not gonna lie. I can't remember all of it, but I can remember very little of it. Yes, which is good. So first, how do you think this disorder, speech disorder, how do you think, why am I saying how do you think, how do they come about in a child? And aside from how does it come about in a child, is how do you start specifying and knowing, like the signs that you start saying that, I think this is about to be it.
Okay. Yeah. So, you see, the developmental continuum, there are expectations at every age level, okay? So, at birth, you expect some forms of development, some developmental skills that are supposed to develop, okay? So, I will divide the course in how speech language disorders, how they come to be. I'll divide into prenatal. Prenatal, that means before birth. Then perinatal, during birth. Then postnatal. After birth. So before birth. Yeah, I mean, people pay for this program, so they need to be here. So you out there, this is the time to go there and hook on to money points, right? So Yeah, we have varied causes of speech language disorders, right? And like I said, for easy understanding, I'm going to categorize them into prenatal, perinatal, and postnatal. So the prenatal causes before the child is born. I mean, when the child was or is in the womb, and then the perinatal during birth, and then postnatal after birth. So before birth, what are those causes? I mentioned fetal alcohol syndrome. That has to do with drug intake, where expectant mothers, they are still using or hooked on drugs, hooked on alcohol, nicotine, cola, cigarettes. These things can affect the growing embryo, right? And then you could have accident. Maybe the mother was going, slipped on the floor, fell down, rushed to the emergency session, and then baby is affected, you know. So you could also have genetic factors at conception, where you have genetic abnormality. In the case of Down syndrome and some other syndrome like Waardenburg syndrome, you know, Kabuki syndrome, or the makeup syndrome, Hunter syndrome, a whole lot of syndrome out there that can be responsible for, excuse me, for speech language disorder. Actually, speech language disorder don't usually occur alone. It's usually a symptom of an underlying condition. So yeah, it's just one of the symptoms you need to tick for other conditions. I'm going to get there. Yeah. So let me quickly fast forward to perinatal period, which at birth. So wrong use of forceps, maybe the child, or prolonged labor. The woman, it's in labor, and then probably the midwife or the doctor in charge, the O&G person, say, oh, you must put to bed through C-section. And then you see the mother saying, it's not my portion. It's not my portion. And I'll push, don't worry. In my family, we don't do CS. We give to bed like the Hebrew women, you know. My pastor already said no knife should touch me and all of that. So, I mean, over 30 years of practicing, I've had a lot of these stories. And it breaks my mind when they come with kids who are, we call it asphyxia. They are distressed because at the point the child wants to come out, there is this connection between the mother and the child. There is no more supply of nutrients, no more supply of oxygen to that child. So the child needs to come out ASAP so that the child can breathe. So a situation where you keep keeping the child in there in the name of your belief or whatever reason, you know, you cut off oxygen and then that child brain suffers. And when that happens, of course, the child might not peak the developmental, might not hit the developmental milestones expected long term. Okay, so wrong use of forceps, prolonged labor, and the way the child was managed at birth. You know, some will pull, you know, maybe the child is already out and probably there is obstructed labor, or the child's, whatever reason, the child might be hooked somewhere between the birth canal and outside. So doctors need to do some maneuver to bring the child out. So at that point, they're doing that. Any nerve can pull, anything can happen. So you could have a lot of things happening. We even have instances where they will come do the C-section, and then the scalpel, the knife, touch the child's head and go straight to the brain and damage a part of the brain. That has happened, you know, severally. Wrong use of, again, instruments, birth instruments during delivery. Anything can happen, you know. And then postnatal, the child is growing up, where you could have kids. There is autotoxicity, for example, autotoxic deafness, where some drugs to save life, like quinine, for example, it's considered as autotoxic medication. Yeah, it's used to treat very severe malaria or cerebral malaria. And then if it's used for a child that is susceptible or not well controlled, it could lead to autotoxic. So you have streptomycin of the, you know, the penicillin, some streptomycin, you know, some of those other antibiotics that are autotoxic. That means they can affect hearing. And once a child cannot hear, the child may not be able to learn how to talk. You know, so that's why I told you that I'm going to get there with speech being a symptom of an underlying condition. Okay, so you also have some developmental dispositions that we really don't know the cause, but we know that you have some genetic connection. That has to do with autism and attention deficit hyperactive disorder. So these are developmental conditions, neurodevelopmental conditions. You know, that the explanation so far, we say there's no known cause, but we know that there is a genetic factor to it, you know, some fragile X gene and the likes. Research is going on to be able to see if they can correct something that can help reduce the presentation of some of the cases. So when you look at autism, the child is not talking, but the cause is autism. So, and then you have repetitive restricted patterns of behavior, and then you have lack of social interaction. So you find that lack of language is just one of the symptoms of autism. Same with attention deficit hyperactive disorder. For attention deficit hyperactive disorder, you have three things that play there. You have the impulsivity, you have the hyperactivity, then you have the attention deficit. So those three areas are key. So because the child is inattentive, they're unable to learn the social skill required for, the social markers required for language development, you know. So because the child is like hyperactive, is unable to copy, is unable to, you know, calm enough to learn some skills. Yes, the child is impulsive, is jumping over things, and, you know, so, and then you also have cerebral palsy, which has to do with, motor planning difficulty. The child is unable to coordinate the muscle to make the right connection. Speech depends on oral motor movements. For me to say, "ba," I must be able to put my lips together. Okay, firm enough, and release the breath. Ba. Okay, so for children with cerebral palsy, because they cannot control their their muscles, they can't control it. You know, muscle has to do with the bone, ligaments, and muscle connection. So for you to make specific movements, you should be able to coordinate the bones, the muscles, and the ligaments or to make any more. If I want to lift my hand, for example, I should be able from my brain connect it. So even if the brain is intact and the muscles, the ligaments, and the bones, they are not getting the information required, I won't be able to make the exact movements based on the message sent by my brain. So that's the case of children with cerebral palsy. Then you have children with intellectual disability. Again, the brain is very important in developing language because there is the cognitive bit. For me to label this flower yellow, for example, I should have learned that I should have the cognitive capacity to learn. So with children with intellectual difficulty and language, to learn language. Language is not what you teach. It's because it fails to develop. That's why I am a speech language pathologist to teach it. It's actually a language, it's a skill that kids are supposed to attain as part of their developmental gift on their own. It's because it fails to develop. That's why yours truly, speech language pathologist. That's why I'm here to teach.
So I'm sorry to cut you. I want to ask a question as regards to what you just said now. Teaching that is you is for some people. You say basically the skill is just supposed to be there. You just start learning as a child.
It's a skill we take for granted.
Of course, exactly. So now you learning, the reason why you're now there is for those who did not learn or who did not see the necessity to learn it. You have to teach them.
Correct.
Now let me ask: have you encountered any student of yours, or I don't want to use the word patient, any students where you have tried to teach how to use the sign language, and it was still difficult, or the person was not learning, whichever way, but
exactly. It happens. It very well. You see, so many reasons could be responsible for a child not being able to learn the language you want to teach. Okay, number one, early intervention. Okay, maybe the child is formed in the way he meets his or her needs. For example, there is no one that does not want to communicate. Okay, maybe that child already have some form of communication with the parent by using gestures. So the child won't say just hand this. lift the mother's hand and say, let's go. And the mother follows. The child has communicated.
Yeah.
You know, the child wants something and then you cry, oh, and the person say, hey, he wants water, give him water. And that's that cry is for water. Or the child wants food, you just lift himself up and him hits himself on the floor. But the person, hey, give him water, give him water. He's hungry. You know, so the child is communicating in inappropriate way, in his own way. So parents over time, they just understand that language and they just move with the child. Unfortunately, not everyone will be able to decode such forms of communication. So because that child is so hooked or using those strategies, again, parents are quick to respond to those inappropriate ways of communication. So when they come into my practice, you know, we first have to teach everyone around that child. So we have to stop responding to this form of communication. If we don't stop responding, then the child will not look for alternative way to communicate. So for you to teach an alternative way to communicate, you must first, you know, find a way to first, you know, scaffold, you know, so yes, you are ignoring that other inappropriate way of communicating and then you are bringing in the appropriate way to communicate. Well, so along the line, you face this other one.
Well,
so you need skills to do.
Yes, there's a question I want to answer for that. Because gratitude wants to take us somewhere that we do not know. Anyways, I want to say with just what you said, growing up as a child, I've always had this notion, and a lot of people have had this notion of people who do not know how to speak. They have to use sign language. They are quick to anger, especially when they are trying to communicate to you, and you're not responding fast. I feel like the next thing, the way they position it to us, they can pick anything and stone you.
Well, you know, it's I won't say that has to do with just not being able to talk. I think it's just human that you are talking to somebody and you feel the person should understand
but he doesn't.
He doesn't understand. So your level of frustration kind of heightened. And it's just like being in another country where they don't speak the language you understand. You don't know how miserable one can be. I think that's just
so you don't think they are quick to anger?
No. I just feel that they are frustrated because they felt you should understand. And then again, if you are not showing that willingness that I want to understand you, you are saying, is that how you are doing? There's something I want to do, darling. You know, then
they get very
angry. So you are impatient, waiting to get the communication. You know. Communication have to be back and forth. So I that is initiating the conversation, you the recipient, you should also be patient enough. It's still even with stutterers, even with individuals that are stuttering. You find that we are so impatient. Well, it's also a speech disorder. We are so impatient. This person is stuttering, then you finish the word for you. You say, no, that's what I'm about to say. You mean that you want to? No.
Some of them will just walk out.
Because some of us are so impatient to give the stutterer the time to finish the expression. We just assume that, you know, it's like, old man Donald has a farm. You see, you just say, What if it is not, What would you say? So it's like that. They just assume there are some line, like, I want to tell you that you are going home. You know, I will just finish it for the time that you are going home because it's almost, no, I'm not going home. I want to tell you that. You said somebody is coming. You said no. You know, the person is frustrated because you're not even waiting. You keep trying to finish the conversation, the line for the person. The person keeps saying, you can imagine how, and the person wants to tell you that, and before the person will tell you, no. That's not what you want to say. Okay, that's not what that's not what you want to say. Okay, what do you want to say? I want you want to say what? Oh yeah, you know, we keep interjecting when this person is struggling. So we are very impatient. We are one.
Okay, that is a whole lot. But I want us to really come back to the topic of today and understand the role of including speech language in our normal educational system?
Okay. Thank you very much for that question. Yes, it's something I really like to happen in my lifetime. Okay. So, yeah, sign language, American Sign Language to be specific, it's what we adopted. The reason being that the people that introduced sign language to Nigeria were American missionaries, headed by Andrew Foster. So they came in through Ghana and then to Nigeria, and then they set up even the deaf school in Ibadan, Oyo State. So you find out that with sign language, it's one way to help individuals with hearing loss in the first place to communicate. But now we're even introducing them to children with other developmental disabilities. Reason being that communication is key. There is no one that does not want to communicate. But how they will is what they don't know. So they have to be taught. So communication is not just verbal. No, in fact, the percentage of our communication, the highest is the non-verbal cues that we give, right? So your facial expression, your gesture, your body movement, it's not just what you say. You find out that we don't just stay with our hand or tied. No, your head is moving, your lips, the sounds coming out, but you see your hand adding more expressions than what you say. Yeah, so sign language shouldn't be something to frown out. It's to frown at. It should be something we should embrace and even introduce it in our curriculum as a second language, you know, as a second language. Very important. So that if you have classmates with hearing loss that learn how to sign, they are not alone. You can speak English and then you can do direct translation, you know, by signing whatever word you want to say to the person. Just like I am doing now. I am talking and signing. It is possible, you know. So teaching second language, sign language as a second language should be, you know, welcome, should be accepted. So that the word inclusion, we mean inclusion in the real sense of it, right? Inclusion is not just putting the child in the classroom just to mark register. After all, the child is in the class with other children learning. Okay, if the child is in the class with other children learning, how can we ensure that that child is learning? What are those things you need to modify? What differentiated teaching are you doing? The curriculum, what are you modifying? So modifying the communication, the means of communication within the classroom environment is also part of inclusion. So introducing sign language is very important. Not only that, if you have, if your child, the regular child, the typically developing child can learn sign language, for example, it will even give that child, number one, the sense of helping, you know, that sense that I can achieve something, that sense that I can touch somebody's life. The empathy, compassion. You are teaching good life skills that will help the child go places. Apart from that, in the international world, if you're good with sign language, it will even give you like an edge, over others in an interview. You know, it's a plus. So if it's introduced, it's really going to help this generation.
So if it's included in the system, in our educational system, how do you think this can be put to play? Do you suggest that a classroom should be created separately for them, while others are being taught the normal verbal language, they'll be taught the sign languages, or should they be?
It will no longer be inclusion if you separate the classes. No, everyone will be educated within the same class system. Just the same way we all learned French. We didn't learn it one day. It's one day at a time. It's a gradual process. The same way you introduce sign language like that. So you teach few words today, few words tomorrow. You know, I mean, they're teaching even Chinese now in school.
Yeah.
So there's no reason why to leave sign language out, especially because it's going to help these minorities that will also contribute their quota to nation development, because they are human beings first. They just have a learning difference by no cause of theirs, just by whatever reason they have hearing loss or whatever reason they have developmental delay.
You know that a lot of things could have caused it. You said a whole lot. You said there are alcohol, there are drugs, different things also. Delay while in labor and all of that. So I want to ask, for a child that is yet to be born and a child that is you're yet to even conceive, what do you think are the things women need to do to, how do I put it, put the rate of children born with speech disorder so that it can be at a very minimal rate? What are the lifestyle we need to start picking up?
Good. So that means intending couples, right? Yeah, before marriage is very important. You see, in those days, you know, before marriage, they will ask the head of the family to go ask around the community, what's the family like?
Sure.
You know, what are those things peculiar to this family? You know, and then they guard against people coming together, getting married, because they want to stop the tendency of passing a gene, you know, that is defective to the next generation. That is one of the idea why that is being done. These days is genetic profiling. Just the same way you try to avoid sickle cell, okay? Like sickle cell anemia, we know the reason why kids will be born with a sickle cell based on the carrier, okay? In both parents, if both parents are carriers, there is higher likelihood of having a child with sickle cell. The same thing. You know, these days we say, if you can afford it, genetic profiling, counseling, you talk, you ask questions. That's one, if you can. But these days, love is blind. So I say, okay. Today is bilingualism and speech disorder. So we're not going to
stick to that.
About love.
Okay.
Right.
So, again, you should prepare your body. These days, we have a lot of toxins everywhere because of technological advancements.
Right.
And some of us are carrying 4 phones, 5 phones. And there is the carbon deposit they're talking about that have to do with technology and the, how do I call it, the system itself and whatever emissions come out from it. So before you get married, it would be good to engage in habits that help fortify your body. Okay? Like, what do you eat? What are those things you eat? What do you indulge in? Okay? What type of supplements you take, or whatever alcohol you take? What are those things that you take that will change your cells in the wrong way? Okay? So I believe you can choose like good health habits that can help your egg cells if you're a woman, or the sperm cells if you're a man, that will, healthy ones. So I think, and then what do you expose yourself to? Because I discovered that along the line, we are worried about people in the oil and gas section, especially the offshore, those people that are always coming close to the fumes. There was a time we have a lot of them coming up with kids, their kids having a lot of delays. You know, in the South especially. And we become worried as a professional body. You know, although we couldn't do a research, I'm thinking if we get sponsor for that research, something we should look into, you know. And I think it has to do with them being exposed to the fumes by its job hazard. That's the way we look at it. So you look at your job, and what is your job exposing you to, or what you are exposed to when you are working. Some people in factories, what kind of chemicals are they using in your factory? Can you find out how that chemical, what's the English I want to use? How do they change your genes? You know,
They alter the genes.
how do they alter your genes? Because there is that gene alteration is possible.
Yeah.
If you are exposed to the same chemical or the same thing that has the capacity to alter your genes, it's just going to happen over time.
True.
Okay, and some of us, we are holding the same job for 20 years. That's huge.
It's a very long time.
That's a long time, even for 10 years. That's a long time to be in an environment that is altering your gene one cell at a time. Okay, and that cell will be passed into your generation. So look out for those things. Then again, if you are preparing to have kids, eat well, sleep well, exercise well. Those things doctors will continue to preach. Please do them. It can make a whole lot of difference. Again, when you are pregnant, watch what you eat, watch how you rest, watch the things you do. And when you give birth to kids, watch what we eat. Sincerely, we need to retrace this. You see, we are Africans. Our genes, they are genes of forefathers that were feeding on plants and meat. But these days, the Western meals came. Easy life, fast food, fast this, fast that. And we all got hooked on that. Parents don't wake up in the morning these days to make akara and ogi. They will just mix whatever cereal they mix. I hope the people with cereal are sponsoring this program. I do not say so. They are not the sponsor. You know, you just mix those things. Everything in cans. That's where I'm going. This one is packed with its own preservative. That one is packed with the flavor, artificial flavor. That one with artificial sweetener, artificial color, artificial. All of these companies, they're gunning for profits. So they're going to add those chemicals that will tantalize your palate the way natural flavors will not do. So that you keep coming for them. So you have a lot of addiction to some of these foods out there. And they are not helpful. They are not helpful. So we need to watch some of these excesses and find a way to go back and put our feet on the ground. That I'm going to make a change. And I'm going to make a change for healthier living. And that change will start
now. Perfect.
Well, this is perfect and this is beautiful. I so much love how the topic how we dived into it, and you know, we decided to swim through down to the very end. I think we touched in as much. The last time we could not touch everything. Yeah, I think we went further today.
Hopefully we still. You said
next time.
Well, it's been so much fun. I hope you enjoyed the show.
Thank you. Oh, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
Always a good time with
you. That's amazing.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I love the vibe.
Thank you.
Anyway, thank you all our viewers for watching. This is Grace, Dr. Grace, who has spoken so much about speech disorder, and we went very deep this time. But if you know you have missed this episode, you can go to our social media platforms and rewatch them again, especially how to avoid your child having speech disorder. Then also, we trying to make sure that the change starts with us. And that is by learning the sign language so you can be able to communicate with everyone without any hindrance. Well, we'll call it a day. I'll be seeing you